I still remember that winter, not just for what happened, but for the kind of cold it brought. A mean cold. The kind that didn't just nip your fingers or fog up your windows. Number. This cold settled inside you. It wrapped around your lungs, clung to your spine, made your bones feel brittle like twigs under snow. Our village wasn't the kind of place people knew existed. Tucked between two ragged mountain ranges and blanketed in silence, it was a forgotten place. We had one road in, and it didn't even have a name, just a weather-worn sign with an arrow and a speed limit no one obeyed. Our days passed slow and gray. We all knew each other, or at least thought we did. Nothing ever happened here. That's why, when it came, we noticed immediately. It was the music that reached us first. High, warped, and dragging like an old lullaby being pulled through water. At first, I thought someone was playing a joke. A messed-up cassette tape, maybe. It echoed off the mountain walls and settled low in your chest. Not loud, just there. Enough to make you stop what you were doing and look out the window. And that's when we saw it. An ice cream truck. I remember blinking, thinking I was imagining it. A faded pink truck, rust chewed at the bottom panels and parts of the wheels. Cartoon characters on the sides were half peeled and sun-bleached, their smiles warped into something more sinister. It rolled slowly through the snow-covered street, leaving no tracks behind. No one understood why it was here. Not during that winter. Not during a storm so cold that even the crows had left. No ice cream could survive in weather like that. And yet, there it was, playing its twisted song and crawling past each house like it was counting. The first time, no one went out. The second night, the truck returned. Same song. Same slow movement. But it didn't just drive by this time. It parked. Right in the center of the village square. And inside it, behind the frosted glass, we finally saw him, the driver. He sat motionless behind the wheel. Black coat, black gloves. Hat pulled low. His face was pale, too pale. Almost like the snow around him had soaked into his skin. He never moved. Not a flicker. Didn't turn the wheel, didn't shift in his seat. Just stared forward while that distorted music played over and over again. At first, we joked about it. Someone must have thought it was a prank, a weird art project. We laughed, nervously, and went back inside. But something started to change. The children. They stood by the windows at night. Silent at first, then whispering, then crying. Some screamed, others begged. All they wanted was to go to the truck. One kid, I think his name was Sam, he tried to open the door even though he was barefoot and shivering. His mom grabbed him before he could make it off the porch. The next night, it was worse. Kids sneaking out of their beds, pressing their faces to the glass, staring at the ice cream truck like it was calling to them. No one knew what to do. The doctors blamed cabin fever, said maybe the cold and isolation were playing tricks. The pastor said it was temptation, something evil testing our faith. But I knew what it felt like. It wasn't just cold anymore. It was wrong. Like the temperature was alive and watching. Like every gust of wind carried a whisper. We tried to ignore it, to hide it. But the children had already heard the music, and something deep in that melody had answered back. That was the beginning. We thought the cold came first. But now, looking back, I know better. The truck brought the cold with it, and the cold brought something else. My niece was the first. Her name was Ellie, 8 years old, bright, sweet, full of questions. That winter, though, she changed, like all the kids did. But she was the first to taste it, the first to let it in. It started with the begging. She'd stand at the window every night, her breath fogging up the glass, her little fingers tapping the pane in rhythm with the twisted music that played from that godforsaken truck. She didn't say much at first, just stood there. But then she began whispering things, muttering names we'd never heard before, staring into the dark like she saw something moving beyond the snowbanks. Her parents were tired. Everyone was. You try locking up a child who screams through the night and claws at the door just because she needs ice cream in the middle of a snowstorm. It sounds ridiculous until you see it. Until you hear it. until your skin crawls because it doesn't feel like a tantrum anymore. It feels like she's being summoned. So, one night, her father gave in. I remember watching from my window as they wrapped her up in 3 coats, scarf, mittens, boots. She was bouncing on her heels like she was going to Disneyland. When they opened the front door, the music from the truck seemed to change. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like it got warmer. Not in a comforting way. More like something pretending to be kind. Like bait. Ellie trudged through the snow, her parents holding hands by the porch, trying not to look scared. She walked up to the truck. The window slid open before she even knocked. She didn't speak. Just stared up at the man, if that's what he was. He handed her a cone. Purple. Deep, oily purple. Swirled high and glistening like gasoline on water. She turned back toward us and took her first lick before anyone could stop her. Her face lit up like it was the best thing she'd ever tasted, but her hands trembled. Her whole body shook. By the time she came inside, her lips were already stained dark. That night, she didn't sleep. I heard her, through the walls, whispering to someone in the corner of her room. I crept down the hall and stood outside her door, heart pounding. The language she used wasn't English, or anything I'd ever heard. It was guttural, soft, and fast, like ice cracking beneath your feet. Her father went in around midnight. 10 minutes later, they called the doctor. She was bleeding from her nose. Her eyes darted around like she was seeing things we couldn't. She kept looking into the corners of the room, laughing sometimes, screaming other times. The doctor said it might be a virus, hallucinations, flu, fever dreams. But her skin was cold, so cold, like she'd never come back inside. 2 days later, 5 more children got sick. Every single one of them had eaten the ice cream. Every cone looked the same, dark, rich purple, like crushed berries mixed with motor oil. But no one ever saw the same flavor twice. One boy said his cone tasted like his mother's blackberry pie. His mother who died last year. Another girl said hers tasted like the exact cake she had on her 6th birthday. A third said his cone sounded like someone humming to him. He never said who, just stared at the floor and smiled. And then the symptoms started. Nosebleeds, night terrors, voices. Some kids couldn't sleep. Others wouldn't wake up. One by one, they began to change. Not in obvious ways. Subtle, twitching fingers, flickering eyes, a sudden stillness when they should have been playing, like they were listening for something. One mother found her son in the backyard, barefoot in the snow, staring up at the sky. He didn't blink. Didn't even flinch when she screamed his name. He just whispered, "It's not snow. It's ash. That's why they feed us." That was the moment people stopped calling it a prank. But it was too late. The first taste had already sunk in. By the end of the 2nd week, our village was unrecognizable. The children were no longer themselves. They moved slower, stared longer, laughed at things no one else could see. One boy tried to eat snow until his mouth turned blue. Another was caught drawing spirals on every wall of his home. Spirals filled with symbols that looked more like claw marks than letters. Parents panicked. Some tried to keep their kids inside, away from windows. Others dragged mattresses into the basements, hoping the thick concrete would muffle the music. But every night, the same off-tune melody snuck in, through the walls, through our bones, and the children heard it. Some screamed and begged. Others just went quiet. Their eyes would glass over, and they'd walk toward the door like sleepwalkers. A few smashed windows to get out. I saw one child crawl through a dog door, lips bleeding from the frost, just to stand in the middle of the road as the pink truck rolled by, its lights flickering dimly, engine humming like a giant insect. Enough was enough. We decided to confront the man. There were 8 of us, mostly fathers, a couple of older teens. We dressed in layers and carried what we had: axes, shovels. One guy even brought a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. It felt ridiculous, walking toward an ice cream truck like we were storming a castle. But we were done being scared. The truck was parked in its usual spot by the well. Same distorted lullaby echoing across the snow-covered square. The man sat behind the wheel, motionless. We approached slowly, the snow crunching beneath our boots. "Hey!" one of the dads shouted. "Get out!" No response. Another man banged on the hood. "We want to talk to you!" Still nothing. That's when I stepped closer, just a few feet from the driver's window. I raised my flashlight and shone it through the frost-glazed glass. He was looking straight at me, but his eyes didn't move, didn't blink. They were wide and glassy, reflecting the light like marbles. And they weren't real. They didn't feel human. His skin looked like wax, almost translucent, with tiny cracks running from the corners of his mouth to his ears. I knocked on the window. He didn't flinch. Then I whispered, without meaning to, "What are you?" He smiled. Just a little. Just enough to show that something behind those fake eyes had heard me. That's when the fire started. One of the others had already doused the back of the truck in gasoline. He lit a match and tossed it without ceremony. The flames caught fast. And then, it screamed. Not the man. Not any of us. The truck screamed. It was a shrill, guttural howl, like metal twisting, like bones breaking, like something waking up after being buried alive. The flames turned purple for a moment, then green, then hissed out like they'd been sucked back into the metal. We stumbled backward. A few of us fell. One guy vomited in the snow. The sound kept echoing, even after the fire was gone. But the truck didn't move. The man didn't get out. And we didn't speak a word the whole walk home. The next morning, the truck was back. Exactly where it had been. Not a scorch mark. Not a dent. The snow around it was untouched, like no one had walked there in days. The only difference? The music was louder, and it was playing forward now. Clear. Joyful. Like a real ice cream truck. But when I heard it, my ears rang. My nose started to bleed. And deep in my chest, something whispered, "You shouldn't have tried to stop it." After the fire failed and the truck came back unscathed, something in the village shifted. The fear that had been bubbling beneath the surface finally boiled over into a cold, quiet dread. Adults stopped speaking in full sentences. Parents no longer asked if something was wrong, only how long they had before their child slipped too far. Some families packed and left in the middle of the night, drove off without goodbyes, their windows covered in cardboard to keep the music out. But those who stayed, we started to ask questions, not of each other, of the children. The answers we got were worse than silence. It started with a boy named Caleb. He hadn't said a word in 3 days, just sat on the floor, hands in his lap, humming the truck's music in perfect pitch. When his mother finally got him to speak, he didn't look at her, just whispered, "I see Ellie. She waves at me every night. She stands next to the truck and smiles. Her teeth are long now." Ellie had been in the first wave, the first to eat the ice cream, the first to fall sick. She was also the first to disappear without a trace. Another child, a girl named Miriam, said the ice cream tasted like the banana cake her father made for her birthday the year before he died. She said the man in the truck didn't hand her the cone. He offered it from his chest, where a drawer opened like a broken rib cage. She said when she looked inside, she saw herself, but not as she was, as something taller, pale, with black eyes and purple veins pulsing along her neck like roots. She said the man called her by a different name. He said it was my real one, she told us. The name I had before. Before what? No one knew. But more kids began to speak of before, of other places. Places beneath the snow. They talked about the cold below the cold. A place where voices lived inside the frost, whispering secrets that made them giggle and twitch. Some said the ice cream didn't melt in their mouths. It grew, expanded, changed. One boy said the ice cream whispered things to him while he ate it. Another said he could feel something staring back from inside it. "There's a face in it," he told his grandmother. "It watches me while I chew." Some kids refused to eat anything else. Some refused to eat at all. The laughter came next, random, uncontrolled. 1 minute they were fine, the next, bursting into laughter that sounded hollow and wrong. Like they were laughing because they were afraid, not in spite of it. One girl laughed until her lips split and her gums bled. Some children stopped responding to their names entirely. One little boy, only 5, sat in a corner and scratched symbols into the wooden floor for hours. When his mother tried to stop him, he hissed at her. Not screamed, hissed. We took notebooks and started recording what they said. But the words didn't make sense. Half of it was in gibberish or strange languages. But the one thing we kept seeing in their drawings and hearing in their murmurs was this phrase: "The frost remembers." We didn't know what that meant, still don't. But it showed up everywhere. In whisper, in frost on windows, once even carved into a frozen pane of glass from the inside. And the most terrifying part? Some of us started seeing things too. Not for long, just glimpses, shapes in the trees, a handprint on the inside of a freezer door, frost that wouldn't melt no matter how high we turned the heat. But the children saw more. They saw they're dead. They're lost. And worse, whatever was behind that man's glassy stare, whatever was humming in the engine of that ice cream truck, was beginning to show them how to find it. And I think, God help us, I think some of them wanted to go. Self-narrated horror movie, part 5 of 6. The day the sun didn't rise. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I had marked the calendar, February 3rd. The cold had settled into the walls by then, the kind of cold that didn't care about heaters or blankets. It had teeth. It gnawed at the insides of our homes and turned our breath into ghosts. But it wasn't just the cold that told us something was wrong. It was the darkness. I woke before dawn, like always, made coffee, wrapped myself in 2 layers, and stood by the window. Normally by that time, there'd be a dim glow on the horizon, faint and gray, but promising light. Not that morning. That morning the sky stayed black, not cloudy, not stormy, just gone. It was like someone had peeled the sky away, and behind it was only void. No birds, no wind, no rising sun, just the same cold, and the music. The truck's melody began playing at 6:12 a.m., a detail I only remember because I looked at the microwave clock when I heard it, that twisted lullaby. Only this time it wasn't distorted or reversed or warbled. It was perfect, clear, loud, echoing through every inch of the village like it was coming from the trees, the rooftops, the earth itself. I threw on my coat and stepped outside, and I wasn't the only one. All the other parents were out there too. No one said anything. No one had to. We were all thinking the same thing. We rushed to the bedrooms, empty. Every crib, every bunk bed, every corner and closet where a child might curl up in fear. Empty. Not a single door was open. No windows cracked. The snow outside was fresh, untouched. No footprints, no trails. It was as if they'd simply vanished. One woman fainted. A man ran screaming into the woods with a shotgun. I checked my niece's room. The bed was still warm. The sheets still shaped to her body. Her favorite stuffed animal, the one she clutched through every fever and nightmare, lay face down on the floor. There was a single purple smear on her pillow, like melted ice cream. We spread out across the village. We searched the houses, the fields, the frozen creek, the woods. Someone brought a searchlight from their garage. Someone else tried calling the police again, though the phones hadn't worked properly in days. Nothing. No sound except the music. And the truck. It sat perfectly still in the town square, headlights off, engine purring low. That's when he got out. The driver. Until that moment, none of us had seen him move, ever. But now the door creaked open, and he stepped down. He was tall. Unnaturally tall. His legs unfolded like a folding chair, longer than they should have been. His coat was frozen stiff, and his skin cracked when he moved. I don't mean dry. I mean literal fissures, like frozen meat pulled from a deep freezer. Gray, blue, almost translucent, and flaking off in chunks. His face had no expression, just the same wide eyes. But I swear, he looked relieved, like he'd been waiting for this. He walked to the back of the truck and opened the freezer. We crowded around, some of us yelling, some frozen in place. And that's when we saw them, our children, packed in rows like trophies, each one encased in blocks of deep purple ice, suspended in mid-scream, mouths open, eyes wide, hands outstretched, their features distorted by the frost, but unmistakable. My niece was right there in the front. Her lips were still stained from the ice cream. We begged. We screamed. We lunged forward. But the driver didn't speak. He just raised one hand and pointed to the sky. And when we looked up, we saw stars. But not like any stars we knew. They were closer, moving, pulsing, like holes in reality, like something on the other side was looking down. And then, just like that, he shut the freezer, got back in, and drove away. No sound of tires, no engine revving. The truck simply glided into the dark like it had never touched the earth. We stood there long after it was gone, hoping maybe it would come back, hoping maybe we imagined it. But we didn't. And when the sun finally rose, late, weak, and pale, it did so over a village that had no laughter left in it. It's been 3 years since the day the sun forgot us. 3 winters since the sky turned black, and the ice cream truck drove off with everything we loved inside it. Most of the village is gone now. Houses boarded up or crumbling under snow that hasn't melted once in all this time. Families left in caravans. Some didn't even bother to take their things. Just abandoned everything. Photo albums, toys, furniture. Like those empty houses could still hold on to the past if they weren't touched. But I stayed. I don't know why. Not exactly. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I wanted to be here if the children ever came back. Or maybe I knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. That it wouldn't end here. And I was right. Because I still see it. Some nights, when the wind dies and the frost hangs motionless in the air like it's listening, I climb the ridge above the village. From there, I can see the valley below. And sometimes, far off, almost hidden between the shadows of other towns, I see the truck. That same faded pink shell, that same slow crawl, that same off-tune lullaby. It finds new places now, places with children who don't know better. I tried to warn them. The first time I saw it in a town 40 miles south, I drove straight there, marched into a town hall meeting, and told them everything about the truck, the driver, the ice cream, the voices in the frost. They thought I was insane. I left flyers, photos, a letter scrawled with every awful thing I remembered, every whisper my niece ever said in that strange frozen language. But no one listened. And then the reports started showing up online. Little towns where kids started acting strange, singing the same tune, drawing spirals in classrooms. One girl in Montana was found outside in a blizzard wearing only her pajamas, smiling up at the stars, frostbitten and giggling. Another town reported hearing music that had no source, just a melody that drifted through neighborhoods at night like a fog. No one made the connection. No one ever does. But I know. I know that wherever it goes, winter follows. Not just cold. Winter. The kind that breathes. The kind that devours. Sometimes I think I hear Ellie's voice in the wind. Sometimes I dream of her face behind purple ice, still screaming, still reaching. And sometimes, on the coldest nights, I swear I see footprints in the snow outside my cabin. Small ones. The kind children make. But when I open the door, there's nothing. Just silence. Just frost curling up the trees like veins. I've written this all down now. Everything. Not because I expect anyone to believe me, but because someone has to remember. If you hear the music, if you see the truck, don't let your children look. Don't open your door. Don't listen. Because it never stops. It only waits. And winter, the real winter, never truly leaves. It just finds a new town,